You're wasting productive space and don't even realize it. Everybody is complaining that their space is too small to grow a lot of food, but your space is not too small. Your strategy is. So a lot of times you will find that most people plant in a single row and they use spacing that are actually made for big farms. And if they're using containers, they plant one crop in a single container. Really and truly, they're following wide spacing that were actually made for big farms. So for big farms, they need to have that wide spacing because imagine if they should have an infestation, it could wipe out their entire crop quite easily. But for us who are planting in our backyards using containers, raised beds, or even planting in ground, leaving your soil bare and not using up the space, planting one crop per container, that's not lack of space. That's actually an inefficient design. If I should be true to you, I'm not bashing you because we're here to fix that. All right, I want to welcome you all back to another Gardening with Stacy. My faithfulers, big up to you all the time. My channel members, big shout out to you. All my new gardening family that recently came on board. Thank you all so much for joining this journey with me. It's always a pleasure to have you. May God bless all of you. All right, so let's get deeper into using up your space to its maximum capacity. Imagine renting a small apartment but only using one room. That's what single crop beds are doing. You paid for the soil, use it all up. If you move into a house, would you put one chair in the center of the living room and call it full? No, you'd put sofa, shelves, and you'd stack it properly. You wouldn't leave it bare. So it's the same with gardening. Why leave the soil bare? That's not a space problem. I know you get me. But anyway, in truth and in fact, nature does not grow in neat, empty rows. You don't find forests, growing, spacing and all of that. No, the forest just grow. Everything just grow without anyone even caring for it. You get what I'm saying? So for crops, that's just in their nature to grow and produce. Now, of course, the difference with the forest and the backyard is that the forest feeds itself. Like whatever, all those leaves that fall, they go back in the soil, they disintegrate, they feed the soil, the fruits, the same thing. The same thing with your garden, just feed your plants. Of course, you're not going to put them too close together because they need that airflow throughout their growing process. But you don't have to follow those wide spacing rules when you're planting in your backyard because you need to use up the space as much as possible. So instead of going 12 inches apart, come down to 7 or 6. No, I'm not exactly telling you what to do, but I'm saying you can cut down a bit so as to grow more food. And that's efficiency. You get me? In this small bed right here, I could have other crops inside here. I could have tomatoes growing inside here. And then before the tomatoes, I could have peppers. And the peppers will not get as tall as the tomatoes. And then before the peppers, I could have lettuce. You understand what I'm getting at? So you can use up your space. So if you have a single container, say one like this, a 17-gallon, you can have a tomato inside, you can have peppers inside, and then lettuce inside as well. That's one container, with 3 different harvests of crops, You understand me? So we have to learn how to use up our space better. And that's what I just mentioned is considered companion planting. In truth and in fact, not all roots compete with each other because yes, you will hear not to plant too much heavy feeders together and some plants will compete for the nutrients. That's not good, yada da da da. Yes, there are some truth to that, but not all plants compete, because you have some that are deep roots and you have some that are shallow roots. All right, so I mean, it's the information is out there. Don't be afraid to use up your Google. I know I am sharing here and all of that, but I may not be able to go in depth, all right, as much as to tell you which crop and that crop and this crop, these two crops, like that. I can just give you examples. For example, tomato roots, they go deep in ground. Lettuce, they stay shallow. They have shallow roots, all right. Carrots, they go down. Onions, they stay near the surface. You see what I'm getting at? So you can plant accordingly. So yeah, you can stack crops above the soil and below the soil. All right? Companion planting isn't about, cute pairings. It's about using up the space and not wasting your soil. You don't find that the forest wastes its soil, the forest just grow. So, yeah, you should definitely take it into consideration, companion planting, to use up your space. My gardening family, shade is not always bad, especially in hot climates. Because, like I was explaining earlier, you can have taller crops going with shorter ones, and that provides some sort of shades for those crops that don't really need full sun. Like I was speaking the other day on my strawberries, or I use, the trees in my garden to give it a little shade. So sometimes you will think that it's overcrowding, but it's actually protection in some cases. No, I am not saying to overcrowd your plants, because airflow is important and sunlight do matters. All right, so don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is that you can look into ways of getting more out of your space and still get a full production, still be eating year round. Also, just to note that the more surface you have exposed to the sun is the more moisture you will lose. So think about it, you can balance things out. I'm telling you. Seed packets were not written for small backyard growers. They were written for commercial farmers and tractors. So they will tell you to space plants wide because they assume average soil, no pruning, and zero management. If you notice on this white one right here, the plant spacing says 18 inches and the rows 18 inches. And if you look closer to this one, it speaks about tilling. So it says if tilling, leave 8 inches or more between rows, and for ant weeding 12 inches is enough. For planting in wide rows, use a 6-inch spacing in all directions. So you see, these spacings were meant for big farms. Now some packages, let me see if I can find any, they will tell you even 24 inches. See, this is one. It says 12 to 24 inches spacing. Wide spacing does reduce disease. Yes, it does. I'm not disputing that. But good soil and good airflow does the same thing. I am planting some carrots inside here. We got some rain. I am super grateful for it. Can just imagine my plants. So yes, I'm planting carrots inside here. I'm going to put a tomato in the middle, cherry tomato in the middle, and I'm also going to put about 4 burgundy okra in there as well. So yeah, I'm maximizing on my space. If your soil is rich and you actually manage your plants You don't need 24 inches just because the packet said so. Growing more food in small spaces isn't reckless, it's strategic. Really and truly, spacing is about risk management, not maximum production. The wider the space, the safer the crop, but not always the most productive. Plants don't read seed package, They respond to quality soil and light. When you plant closer, you're trading space for management. So close spacing works best when you control height with pruning and trellising. Healthy soil can support closer spacing because nutrients are more available. If you don't manage airflow in a humid climate, tight spacing will punish you. So dense planting can actually shade soil and reduce water loss. Commercial spacing prioritizes uniformity. Home gardening can prioritize yield. I'm not saying ignore spacing completely. I am saying understand why it exists before you follow it blindly. So stop thinking like you have acres of land. Start thinking like you have a system. Space is fixed. Strategy is flexible. All right? You don't need a bigger yard. You need a smarter design. Some of the most productive farms in the world are small. What makes them productive is not their size, it's their design. You really don't measure success by how spread out your plants are. You measure the success by how much food you get out of the space. I hope this video was useful to you. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, walk good. Come garden with me now, man.
And what a nice place to live. Sweet